A rich woman mocked her sister, who inherited an old house from their father. A year later, a twist occurs that leaves everyone in shock. The sun had barely begun to rise on the horizon when the sisters Isabella and Lily gathered in the old family mansion, now silent and marked by the irreparable absence of their father. The family lawyer, a middle-aged man with firm gestures and a respectful expression, waited patiently in the room where the light filtered through heavy curtains, creating a solemn and melancholic atmosphere. Isabella, dressed elegantly and with a distant gaze, seemed impassive, as if the reading of the will was just another unimportant formality. Lily, on the other hand, kept her head down, her eyes filled with tears, holding in her hands a handkerchief that belonged to her father, as if the piece of fabric was her last tangible connection to him. When the lawyer began reading the will, his voice echoed through the room like a final sentence. Isabella, always practical and focused, received the news that she would inherit a generous sum of money. Her face showed no surprise, just a slight satisfaction, as if what was expected had simply been fulfilled. For her, that inheritance was nothing more than the recognition of her position and success in life. Lily, however, was granted something very different. The family home, an old building that seemed to carry the weight of the years in every stone. Upon hearing this, Lily closed her eyes, feeling a mixture of gratitude and pain. She knew that house held all the memories of her childhood, and above all, the living presence of the father she loved so much. The atmosphere in the room became tense for a moment. Isabella cast a quick glance at her sister, something between disdain and indifference. To her, sentimental value had no place in a world where money and status dictated the rules. But Lily, with the serenity of someone who understands the true meaning of what is valuable, simply nodded, accepting the house as a final gift from her father, a symbol of everything he represented. The lawyer's words continued, but for Lily, everything around seemed distant. Her mind traveled through childhood memories, her father teaching her to read in the living room, the winter nights around the fireplace, and the smiles shared during meals. Now, all of that belonged to her, not as a burden, but as an inheritance of love. When the reading was over, Isabella stood up with her usual haughty posture, ready to continue with her life of luxury and social commitments. "Whatever you do with that old house, I hope it's not a waste," she said with a cynical smile before walking out the door without looking back. Lily remained in the room for a few minutes alone with her emotions. She felt that the house, now more than ever, was an extension of her own heart. It didn't matter what her sister thought. She knew that this was her father's true legacy, and she was determined to honor it no matter the cost. Lily stood up, still holding her father's handkerchief tightly against her chest, and looked at the door through which Isabella had left. She knew that the relationship with her sister would never be easy, but at that moment, she felt an inner peace that no amount of money could buy. The two sisters met at the family house for coffee after the reading of the will. The kitchen, where so many shared memories had been created, now seemed like a strange and empty place. Isabella, with a steaming cup of coffee in her hands, gave Lily a condescending look. "Well, little sister, it seems you got the worst part of the will. An old house that's barely standing? I think Dad was too generous with me," she said with a sarcastic smile, savoring the superiority she felt. Lily, who always preferred silence over provocation, took a deep breath before responding. She knew that for Isabella, the value of something was measured in figures, not feelings. "I think Dad knew what he was doing, Bella. This house, it means a lot to me. It's where we grew up, where he taught us so many things. To me, it's much more than just old walls," she said, in a calm but firm tone. Isabella rolled her eyes as if her sister's words were naive and unimportant. "Oh, Lily, you're always so sentimental," Isabella replied with a cold laugh, fiddling with her gold bracelet, a symbol of her wealth and status. "While you're busy trying to relive the past, I'll be enjoying the inheritance that Dad wisely left me. Who knows? Maybe I'll even buy a new house, something modern and worthy of a successful woman," she added, leaving in the air her disdain for the old house and what it represented. Lily kept her composure, but inside she felt the weight of her sister's words. Maybe you're right, Bella, but to me the value of something isn't in the money it can bring. It's in the memories, in the love it carries. This house is a part of who we are, of who Dad was. And that is priceless, she replied, looking at Isabella with a mix of sadness and determination. The response didn't hit Isabella as an offense, but as something so distant from her understanding that it only made her smile with more disdain. Impatient with her sister's seriousness, Isabella finished her coffee in one gulp, leaving the cup on the table with a dry sound. Well, I wish you luck in your nostalgic mission, Lily. I just hope you don't regret wasting time and energy on something that, in the end, may not be worth anything, she said, already getting up to leave. Sometimes it's better to leave the past where it belongs, she concluded with the same coldness with which she had started the conversation. Lily watched Isabella leave the kitchen, her steps echoing on the wooden floor that meant so much to her. For a moment she felt a tightness in her chest, but it was soon replaced by a sense of peace. The golden twilight sky greeted Lily as she stood in front of the family house, now hers by right. The old facade, with its peeling walls and dusty windows, seemed a shadow of what it once was, but to Lily, every imperfection told a story. As she opened the door, a soft creak echoed through the entrance, and the smell of old wood filled her senses, bringing back a flood of childhood memories. The house seemed to have breathed deeply with her arrival, as if it had been waiting for her all this time. The narrow hallway led Lily to the living room, where years of use were still visible on the worn wooden floor. She walked through the space slowly, her fingers lightly brushing the dust-covered furniture as if she were caressing a memory. Every corner of that place held an echo of the past. The shared laughter with her father, the cold nights when they huddled around the fireplace, the stories he told as the candlelight flickered softly. Everything seemed imbued with a bittersweet feeling of nostalgia. In the center of the room, an old wall clock marked the hours with a slowness that seemed almost intentional, as if trying to prolong the moment. Lily approached it, remembering how her father would religiously wind it every day at dawn. That rhythmic sound, which had always calmed her as a child, now seemed to bring a new responsibility, a reminder of what she needed to do to keep her father's memory alive. And for the first time since the reading of the will, Lily felt connected to something greater than herself. As she climbed the stairs that creaked under her feet, Lily realized how arduous the road ahead would be. The rooms upstairs were almost uninhabitable, with pieces of wallpaper peeling off and small leaks on the walls. However, instead of discouragement, she felt a strange sense of purpose growing within her. In the room that was once hers, Lily found an old toy box hidden under a layer of dust. She sat on the now cold and worn wooden floor and opened the lid, revealing a collection of dolls and children's books. Each item was a time capsule, bringing back moments of simplicity and joy that she had shared with her father. She picked up a fairy tale book, the cover already yellowed by time, and remembered how her father always read a story to her before bed. A soft smile curved her lips, and she decided then and there that she would do everything to restore the house to its former glory. Driven by this determination, Lily went back downstairs to the kitchen where the late afternoon light streamed through the windows, tinting everything with a golden glow. She remembered the afternoons she spent there, watching her father prepare meals with care and love. Now, that kitchen was in ruins, but in her eyes she saw the potential for something new and vibrant, a place that could once again be the heart of the house. As she ran her hand over the counter, Lily made a silent promise. She would restore every piece of that house, not to prove anything to Isabella, but to honor the memory of the one she loved most. As she stepped outside into the garden where the weeds grew tall and wild, Lily felt the fresh air fill her lungs, mixed with the smell of damp earth. The trees, which had once provided shade while she played, now needed urgent care. But instead of feeling overwhelmed, Lily saw an opportunity to start anew. Isabella lived in a world where everything glimmered but little truly shone. Her nights were marked by gala events, parties that brought together the elite of society in luxurious halls. where champagne flowed and laughter echoed like rehearsed melodies. She moved among the guests with the grace of someone who knows all eyes are on her. Her dress, a masterpiece made to measure, glittered under the light of crystal chandeliers, and her perfectly calculated smile seemed frozen on her face. But behind that impeccable facade, Isabella felt a growing emptiness that no expensive jewel could fill. While compliments and admiring glances surrounded her, Isabella realized that the conversations around her were as superficial as the glitters that enveloped her. Words were spoken with the lightness of someone who didn't really care about what was being said, and every sentence seemed more like a display than a genuine exchange. During the events, Isabella often found herself isolated, even when surrounded by people. Her thoughts wandered far from the false smiles and frivolous conversations, and she wondered if anyone there really knew her, or if her true identity had been lost under layers of makeup and expensive fabrics. When the parties ended, she returned to her luxurious apartment, a place that was supposed to be her refuge, but now seemed more like a gilded cage. Upon entering, she was greeted by the cold silence of a home, where each piece of furniture had been chosen for its aesthetic value, not for any sentimental attachment. One night after a particularly opulent party, Isabella found herself alone in front of a full-length mirror, the reflection showing an impeccable woman, but with eyes heavy with exhaustion and disillusionment. She touched the golden frame of the mirror, feeling the cold metal against her skin, and wondered where she had lost herself. The woman in the mirror seemed to have everything, but Isabella knew that what she most desired could not be bought or conquered through status. The emptiness inside her echoed in the empty corridors of her apartment, where every object seemed to be there just to fill space, but never the soul. She tried to fill the void with more luxury, more glamour, but each new acquisition seemed to increase the feeling that something crucial was missing from her life. The world she had built for herself, based on appearances and wealth, began to crumble from within, and Isabella found herself increasingly trapped in a cycle of vanity and loneliness. There were moments when Isabella, alone in her room adorned with the finest fabrics and works of art, remembered Lily and the simplicity that always accompanied her. She wondered how her sister could be happy with so little while she, surrounded by everything money could buy, felt so empty. The morning was clear and cold when Lily arrived at the house ready to begin the renovation. The rising sun cast a soft light on the worn facade, revealing the scars of time. With a deep sigh, Lily knew that the journey would be arduous, but the determination in her heart was unwavering. She started by visiting material depots and antique shops, looking for elements that respected the soul of the house. Every brick chosen, every rescued wooden plank had a story, and Lily made sure that every detail had meaning. However, she soon realized that financial resources were limited, making every choice more difficult. As expenses increased, Lily found herself forced to make sacrifices, cutting costs in her own life to prioritize the renovation. She gave up personal luxuries and even small comforts, always with a clear vision of what she wanted to achieve. Despite the difficulties, with every wall renewed and every new room taking shape, a sense of joy sprouted within her, as if she were returning life to the house that time had taken away. Some offered labor, others brought tools and materials they had at home, and there were those who simply came to offer a word of encouragement or bring a hot meal. Each small achievement was celebrated. The first room to be completed was the kitchen, the heart of the house. As she placed the last tile, Lily smiled, remembering the afternoons she spent there with her father. She invited the neighbors for coffee in the new kitchen, and the environment was filled with laughter and lively conversations. It was as if the house was finally awakening, becoming a home again, not just for Lily but for everyone who helped. The human warmth seemed to impregnate the walls, transforming what was once a worn-out building into something alive and pulsating. The difficulties, however, did not cease. There were moments when exhaustion took over and Lily wondered if she could continue. But whenever she felt the weight of responsibilities, something pushed her forward. Perhaps it was the memory of her father, or the unconditional support of those around her. The garden, which had once been completely abandoned, also began to receive attention. With the help of neighbors, Lily managed to clear the area, plant flowers, and organize a space where people could gather. The garden, which once represented neglect and abandonment, now bloomed as a symbol of rebirth. Isabella passed by the family house in her new luxury SUV, casting a quick and critical glance at the building under renovation. Every time she saw Lily, covered in dust, smiling as she supervised the work, a mix of disdain and perplexity took over her. For Isabella, it was inconceivable that her sister was wasting so much time and energy on something that, in her eyes, had no value at all. "She's wasting her life," she murmured to herself as she sped to her next social commitment. In her conversations, the tone was always mocking. For Isabella, the house was nothing but a burden, an insignificant reminder of a past she preferred to leave behind. Despite her disdain, Isabella couldn't avoid the growing discomfort that arose every time she saw the serene expression on Lily's face. There was something in that dedication, in that glow in her sister's eyes, that began to disturb her. Isabella had everything she ever wanted: money, status, access to the most exclusive circles. But lately, as she witnessed Lily's simple joy amid the chaos of the renovation, a strange feeling began to form in her chest. It was something she didn't want to admit, not even to herself. A pang of envy. Isabella tried to rationalize this feeling, convincing herself that Lily's happiness was fleeting, a result of her naivety. "She'll get tired soon," she told herself, convinced that her sister would soon realize how foolish she was being. What disturbed Isabella the most was the glaring difference between the superficial happiness she displayed at luxurious events and the genuine happiness she saw in Lily. While she worried about the next party, the next dress, Lily found joy in simple things, like a freshly painted wall or a flower that finally bloomed. Conversations with her friends became more laden with sarcasm. She laughed as she told stories about Lily's adventures in the crumbling house, and everyone around laughed too. But inside, Isabella felt a void that those laughs did not fill. Over time, Isabella began to avoid passing by the house, trying to escape the sight that so troubled her. But even in her luxurious parties and glamorous events, the image of Lily, covered in paint and laughing with the neighbors, wouldn't leave her in peace. Isabella found herself looking at the empty corners of her impeccably decorated apartment, feeling a weight in her chest that she didn't know how to relieve. What once seemed like a successful life now began to feel like a prison, and the freedom she saw in Lily made her question everything she thought she knew about happiness. It was a quiet afternoon, the sound of hammers and power saws echoing through the house as Lily supervised the work upstairs. The renovation had already advanced considerably, and now they were focusing on her father's old office. The environment, once gloomy and covered in dust, was beginning to come to life with new layers of paint and restored furniture. During the process of removing a plaster wall, something unusual happened. One of the workers, as he struck the wall, heard a hollow sound, as if something were hidden there. Lily quickly approached, feeling a growing curiosity. The worker, intrigued, decided to make a larger hole in the wall, revealing a small hidden cavity. Inside it, there was an old wooden box, worn by time, but still intact. Lily's heart raced. She picked up the box carefully, feeling the weight of the decades it carried. What could her father have hidden there so carefully? With trembling hands, Lily opened the box. Inside, she found documents yellowed by time, an old key and a letter, carefully folded, with her name handwritten on it. The paper, despite being fragile, was perfectly preserved. She immediately recognized her father's handwriting. She sat down on a nearby chair, taking a deep breath before starting to read the letter. Her father's words seemed to cross time, filled with love, and a revelation that Lily could never have imagined. "My dear Lily," the letter began, "if you are reading this, it means you have finally found what I hid for so long. This house, which to many may seem just a relic of the past, holds secrets that few know. It is built on land that is more valuable than any treasure I could have left you." Lily felt a shiver run down her spine. She continued reading, her heart beating faster with each line. Her father mentioned mineral rights, hidden resources, and an ancestral history linked to that property. The words danced before Lily's eyes as she tried to absorb what she was discovering. The house, which she had always considered just a symbol of her father's memory, was actually a portal to unimaginable wealth. Her father had kept this secret for years, knowing that at the right moment Lily would discover it. "I trust you to do what is right, my daughter," the letter concluded, "and to honor the history and legacy that this land carries." Lily carefully closed the letter, her emotions mixing inside her. She looked at the documents in the box, which confirmed everything her father had written. There were detailed maps, old contracts, and even a letter from a geologist describing the mineral resources that existed beneath the property. Everything indicated that the land where the house was built was worth much more than anyone could have imagined. For a moment, the world around Lily seemed to stop. The reality of that discovery weighed on her shoulders. What should she do now? The implications were enormous, not just for her, but for her family, for the community, and even for her father's memory. Lily spent the night awake, sitting at the newly renovated kitchen table, with the documents spread out in front of her. Her father's words echoed in her mind, each phrase filled with meanings she was still trying to decipher. She decided that she needed to fully understand what those mineral rights meant. The next morning, she went to the local registry office, and then to the office of a trusted lawyer, someone who could help her navigate the legal and historical complexities of that unexpected legacy. The lawyer, upon reviewing the documents, couldn't hide his surprise. "Lily, do you have any idea what this means?" he asked, almost incredulous. She shook her head, still trying to process everything. He explained that the mineral rights mentioned in the papers were, in fact, extremely valuable. The property was located in a region rich in natural resources that, if explored, could generate an incalculable fortune. The lawyer suggested they consult a geology and mining specialist to confirm the potential of the land. Lily, still in shock, agreed. In the days that followed, Lily immersed herself in research, talking to experts who confirmed what she could barely believe. The land under the house was indeed over an area with significant mineral potential. The value of the land, once considered insignificant, was now assessed in figures that seemed unreal. Lily found herself in a whirlwind of information, meetings, and possibilities that she had never imagined. Each new discovery seemed to increase the scale of the turnaround her life was about to take. Amidst all this turmoil, Lily couldn't help but reflect on how little she knew about what really mattered. Her simple life, clinging to family memories, was now intertwined with a complex web of wealth and history. She felt her father's presence in every decision she made, as if he were guiding her through what would certainly be a monumental transformation in her life. However, the weight of the decisions to come began to make itself felt. What to do with this new wealth? How to keep her father's legacy intact while navigating this new world? With each visit to the lawyer or the geologist, Lily felt the world around her change. The simple act of walking through the house now had a different meaning. Every corner, every stone, seemed to carry new value, a new story waiting to be told. She realized that the house was not just a refuge of memories, but a central piece in a narrative much larger than she could have ever imagined. It was a legacy that would transcend her own life and affect the future of many others. As the truth about the value of the land became clear, Lily also began to feel external pressure. Although she hadn't yet told anyone about the discovery, she knew that once the news spread, everything would change. As she processed all this, Lily realized that the upheaval that was happening was not just financial, but deeply personal. The discovery of the mineral rights would not only change her life, but also reveal who she really was and what she valued. It didn't take long for the news of the mineral potential of Lily's property to discreetly circulate among investor circles. In just a few days, Lily began receiving calls from people she had never heard of, all eager to set up a meeting. One morning, her lawyer called with a voice that mixed excitement and caution. "Lily, we just received a proposal, and it's something big. Very big," he said, pausing to let the words settle. Lily remained silent for a moment, trying to process what that meant. When she finally found her voice, she asked the lawyer to explain in more detail. He described the proposal as a multi-million-dollar offer from a group of investors who had conducted a detailed assessment of the land. They were willing to pay an exorbitant amount to acquire the property and mineral rights. The sum was so high that for a moment, Lily felt the ground tremble beneath her feet. It was enough money to change her life, and that of her family, forever. As Lily pondered the offer, Isabella received the news indirectly, in a casual conversation during one of the social events she frequented. One of her friends, always attentive to the latest financial gossip, commented on how a group of investors was eyeing a property that apparently belonged to someone in Isabella's family. "It's your sister's old house, isn't it?" the friend said almost disinterestedly. Isabella, until then unaware of what was happening, felt the world around her slow down as the words registered. Isabella returned home that night, unable to get the conversation out of her head. The idea that the house she had despised so much could be worth millions seemed absurd, but the discomfort inside her grew. She knew she couldn't ignore what she had heard. She called the family lawyer, demanding answers. When he confirmed the situation, Isabella felt a deep shock course through her body. The sister she had always considered so naive was about to become immensely rich. As she reflected on the turnaround, Isabella remembered the many times she had mocked Lily, underestimating her determination and attachment to that old house. Now she found herself forced to confront the truth she had tried to ignore. She had underestimated both the house and her sister. The realization hit her like a blow. The fortune she valued so much seemed small compared to what Lily was about to achieve. More than the money, what Isabella really envied was the wisdom and strength her sister had always had, something she now saw as priceless. The following days were filled with silent anguish for Isabella. With each new piece of news about the possible deal, the reality of her mistake became more evident. In her mind, the sarcastic comments she had made, the jokes about the useless old house now haunted her. How could she have been so blind? The envy that once was limited to Lily's simple happiness now mixed with regret, and the pain of realizing that, in her incessant pursuit of status, she had lost the opportunity to see the true value of things. While Isabella struggled to deal with the whirlwind of emotions, Lily, on the other side of the city, was facing one of the most difficult decisions of her life. The $1 million proposal represented a unique opportunity, but also meant giving up something that had an immeasurable emotional value. Isabella spent days trying to gather the courage to face Lily. The regret consumed her, transforming what was once mere discomfort into deep pain. She knew she needed to fix things, but also feared that it might already be too late. Finally, on a sunny morning, she decided to visit the family home. On the way, her heart pounded and her hands sweated with nervousness. Upon arrival, she stood for a few minutes in front of the door, hesitating. The sound of laughter coming from inside the house made her feel even more out of place, as if that world which was once hers no longer belonged to her. When Lily opened the door, she was surprised to see Isabella there. The two stared at each other for a moment, the silence between them heavy with everything that had not been said. Isabella, usually so confident, seemed small and vulnerable. "Can I come in?" she asked, almost in a whisper. Lily nodded, making space for her sister to enter. They moved to the living room, where they sat in opposite chairs, an invisible chasm between them. Isabella looked around, noticing the changes in the house. The environment was full of life, of light, a stark contrast to the last time she was there. "Lily, I know I was horrible to you," Isabella began, her voice trembling. "I underestimated you, the house, and everything it represents. I was blind, trapped in my own world, and didn't see what really mattered. I'm sorry for everything." The words, though sincere, seemed heavy, as if they carried the weight of years of distance and disdain. Lily remained silent for a few seconds, absorbing the apology. She knew Isabella was being honest, but she also knew that words, no matter how true, would not erase the past. "Isabella, I accept your apology," Lily finally said. "But we need to understand that things have changed. I have changed. And maybe what we had before can't be recovered." Lily's words were spoken with kindness, but carried the firmness of someone who knew her worth. Isabella felt a pang of pain in her chest upon hearing that. She had not considered that Lily could have changed so much, become so independent and strong. "I just wanted a chance to make things right between us," Isabella said, almost pleading. "I don't want to lose you, Lily. We're sisters. That still means something, doesn't it?" The vulnerability in Isabella's voice was evident, and for the first time she wasn't hiding her fear of losing the only true bond she still had. Lily looked at her sister with compassion. She understood Isabella's pain and regret, but she also knew that the dynamic between them would never be the same. "Isabella, we are still sisters, and that will never change," Lily said softly. "But maybe what we need now is time and space to find a new path for our relationship. We can't just go back to what we were before, but we can try to build something new, based on the respect and understanding that we might have lost over the years." Lily's words were wise and fair, but Isabella felt the depth of the change that had occurred between them. She was no longer the older sister who could control the situation. Lily was now on equal footing, or perhaps even in a stronger position. "I understand," Isabella said, resigned but with a newfound admiration for her sister. "I'll give you the time you need. I just hope that one day we can be close again." Lily smiled softly, a smile that was not of triumph but of peace. "Maybe we can," she replied. "Let's see what the future holds." And with that, the two sisters, for the first time in a long time, felt that maybe, just maybe, they could find a new beginning, one built on the truth and maturity they had finally reached. Lily spent days reflecting on the $1 million proposal she had received. The figures were impressive and the temptation to accept was real. But every time she walked through the halls of the house, something stronger than money held her back. The walls, the furniture, the garden. Everything there carried the essence of her father, the family stories, and the memories that shaped her. It was not just a property. It was a living legacy. Selling the house would mean giving up all of that, erasing a story that transcended generations. And Lily knew deep in her heart that this was a decision she could not make. Instead of selling, Lily began to envision a new purpose for the house, something that not only preserved its memories but also benefited the community that had supported her so much. The idea of transforming the place into a community cultural center began to take shape in her mind. A place where people could gather, share stories, learn, and create. The house, which once was a family refuge, would now have a new role. It would be a space of union, where her family's history would intertwine with the stories of all who passed through. With this decision made, Lily began involving the community in the project. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers, attracted by the novelty, offered help. Some donated materials, others time and skills, and many simply came to provide moral support. The energy around the house changed. Where once there was only the sound of hammers and saws, now there were laughter, lively conversations, and a palpable sense of hope. The house, which was once a simple inheritance, began to take on a life of its own, transforming into a symbol of collaboration and resilience. Each new day, Lily saw the cultural center taking shape. Her father's old office was transformed into a community library, where children and adults could lose themselves in books and discover new worlds. The living room, with its restored fireplaces, became a gathering space where events, meetings, and celebrations were held regularly. The garden, which Lily had cared for so much, flourished, becoming a space for picnics, outdoor performances, and simple moments of peace. The house, which once seemed on the brink of oblivion, now pulsed with life and purpose. The impact of the transformation went beyond what Lily could have imagined. People of all ages began to frequent the cultural center, finding there a place where they felt part of something greater. For many, the house became a second home, a place where they were welcomed and could be themselves. The stories of her family intertwined with the new stories being formed there, creating a web of connections that further strengthened the community. Her father's legacy was not only preserved but expanded, touching lives in ways Lily never imagined. On a spring night during the official opening of the cultural center, Lily watched the crowd that had gathered. The glow of the lights, the sound of laughter and conversation, and the sight of so many happy people filled her heart with deep joy. She knew she had made the right decision. And so, what began as a simple renovation of an old house turned into a renewal of an entire community. Lily, who once thought she was just preserving the past, discovered that she was, in fact, building the future. Isabella, now back in her luxurious apartment, felt a void that neither the walls adorned with artwork nor the expensive furniture could fill. The days passed slowly, and the nights dragged on in oppressive silence. She had spent so much time chasing wealth and status, believing it would bring happiness, but now, surrounded by all the luxury she had achieved, loneliness was her only companion. Sitting in her immense living room, where everything was perfectly organized and lifeless, Isabella realized that she had no one to share her triumphs, or, now, her sadness with. The social events that were once her refuge became unbearable. The empty conversations, the forced laughter, everything seemed false and distant. Isabella began to notice the superficiality of the relationships she had built over the years. Her friends were there for what she represented, not for who she really was. And now, when she needed someone the most, the calls were less frequent, the messages ignored, and the visits almost non-existent. The coldness of the world she had sought so much surrounded her, leaving her increasingly isolated. In her heart, Isabella knew she had made choices that led to this loneliness. She remembered the times when she ignored what really mattered, focusing only on accumulating possessions and maintaining a flawless image. The emptiness she felt now was the result of years of living up to others' expectations, neglecting genuine human connections. She thought of Lily, who even without material wealth, always had a life rich in love and true relationships. The irony of this did not escape her, and the regret grew in her chest like a dense shadow. The apartment walls, once a display of her success, now seemed to close in on her, trapping her in a prison of her own choices. Isabella began to avoid the large mirrors scattered around the house, unable to face her reflection without feeling a pang of pain. The woman she saw was not the powerful and confident figure she imagined herself to be, but a lost person who had sacrificed what truly mattered for a quickly fading glow. The realization of this reality was painful, but it was also a call for a change that she did not yet know if she was ready to make. The sound of Isabella's footsteps echoed lonely through the apartment as she wandered aimlessly, searching for something she could not identify. The silence, once a sign of her independence, was now a constant reminder of her loneliness. Each corner of that luxurious space seemed to scream the absence of something no money could buy. Isabella began to question whether all her effort had been in vain, whether, in the end, she had pursued something that would never truly satisfy her. Looking out the window, Isabella watched the city shining outside, but to her, that shine no longer meant anything. It was just a facade, just like the life she had built. In her solitude, she realized she had spent so much time trying to prove something to the world that she forgot to cultivate relationships, to love and be loved. And now, all that remained were empty memories and deep regret for all the missed opportunities, all the people she pushed away in her relentless pursuit of an ideal of perfection that did not exist. Isabella felt the weight of what she had lost, but she also knew she was at a crossroads. She could continue down this path of loneliness, trapped in her own emptiness, or she could somehow try to rebuild her life, rediscovering what really mattered. But the doubt gnawed at her. Was it possible to start over after everything? And above all, could she find a new way of living that was true and satisfying? The future seemed uncertain, and loneliness increasingly seemed to be her only certainty. Over time, the transformation of the family home into a cultural center brought new life to Lily. The space, once silent and dusty, now pulsed with energy and creativity. Every day, people of all ages and backgrounds came to the center to participate in workshops, exhibitions, and community events. The garden bloomed, as did the new friendships Lily cultivated. She, who was once seen as the more humble sister, became a central figure in the community, respected not only for her dedication, but also for her vision of a shared future. Lily walked through the corridors of the cultural center, observing the artworks that adorn the walls, many of them created by local artists who found there a space to express their voices. Children ran through the garden, laughing and playing, while adults gathered in groups, discussing projects or simply enjoying each other's company. There was a vibration in the air, a sense of purpose and belonging that Lily had never experienced so intensely. The house, which was once a simple refuge of memories, was now a meeting point for dreams and possibilities. The success of the cultural center quickly attracted attention beyond the limits of the community. Journalists came to write about the project, highlighting the transformation of a once decaying space into a symbol of renewal and hope. With the growth of the center's notoriety came new opportunities as well. Lily was invited to speak at conferences and events, sharing her story of resilience and determination. She became an influential voice, someone who demonstrated that with passion and commitment, it was possible to make a real difference in people's lives. As the cultural center thrived, Lily's life also flourished in ways she had never imagined. Her humility, combined with her tireless spirit, made her a natural leader, someone others trusted and admired. The friendships she built were deep and sincere, based on shared values and the desire to build something greater than each individual. In a world that so often seemed to crumble under the weight of superficiality and selfishness, Lily created a space where true wealth was measured by the ability to unite, inspire, and strengthen. With each new project that arose, Lily felt she was finally living her father's legacy in a way he would approve of. She not only preserved his memory, but expanded it, transforming it into something tangible that benefited many. What was once a house full of personal memories was now a beacon of hope for an entire community. The recognition Lily received was not just for her vision, but for how she always remained true to her principles, even when she could have chosen the easier and more lucrative path. The sense of accomplishment that filled Lily did not come from headlines or praise, but from the human connection she felt every day. The smile of a child after finishing a painting, the gratitude of an artist upon seeing their work exhibited, the shared joy during a community event. All of this fed her soul in a way she had never experienced before. Each passing day, Lily saw more clearly that her true calling was to serve others, to create spaces where love, art, and community could flourish together. Isabella walked towards the family home, feeling the weight of regret in every step. The time since her last visit had passed slowly, and the loneliness in her life only seemed to grow. Determined to seek reconciliation, Isabella knew she needed to do something that had never been easy for her: acknowledge her mistakes and ask for forgiveness. When she reached the door, the sound of voices and laughter coming from inside made her stop for a moment. For a moment, she felt like an intruder in a world that now seemed so distant from hers. When Lily opened the door, her face reflected surprise but not hostility. "Isabella," Lily said in a neutral but firm tone. Isabella for a second almost lost herself in her insecurities, but forced herself to move forward. "Lily, I need to talk to you," she began, her voice faltering. "I know I've made many mistakes, that I was unfair and selfish. I wanted so much for us to be sisters again, like before. I'm really sorry." Isabella felt every word like a stab to her pride, but she knew it was necessary. Lily listened to Isabella's words in silence, evaluating them carefully. She knew her sister's regret was genuine, but she also knew she couldn't simply ignore the past. "Isabella, I appreciate your apology," Lily replied, her voice calm but without the sweetness Isabella had hoped for. "But we need to understand that things have changed. I have changed. And now, I know my worth. I know what I want for my life. I can no longer allow myself to be dragged back to what we were before." Isabella felt a lump in her throat upon hearing Lily's response. She realized that although forgiveness was possible, things would never be the same. "I understand," she replied, trying to keep her composure. "But can't we try? I really want to make things right this time." The vulnerability in her voice was clear, and for the first time, Isabella didn't seem like the haughty woman she had always been, but someone deeply regretful and lost. Lily looked at Isabella, seeing the sincerity in her eyes but also understanding that some wounds don't heal easily. "Isabella, I forgive you, but I can't just go back and pretend everything is as it was before. I need space, and maybe you do too. Sometimes distance is what helps us grow and find what really matters." Lily's words were firm but spoken with compassion. She knew that both needed to follow different paths to find their own answers. Isabella lowered her head, tears threatening to fall. She knew Lily was right, but the pain of realizing that the bond between them had changed irreversibly was almost unbearable. "I just wanted a second chance," Isabella murmured, more to herself than to Lily. Lily's response was a slight nod, a gesture that said more than words could express. It was an acknowledgement of the difficulty of the situation, but also an acceptance that things can always go back to the way they were. With a heavy heart, Isabella stood up to leave. She looked at Lily one last time, hoping for some sign that things could get better. Lily, in turn, smiled slightly, a smile that contained both sadness and hope. "Take care, Isabella," she said, not fully closing the door. And with that, Isabella walked away, knowing that the road ahead would be lonely, but that it might be necessary to finally find peace with herself. As Isabella walked away, Lily remained at the door for a moment, feeling a mix of emotions. She knew she had made the right choice, both for herself and for her sister. The distance between them now was inevitable, but it was also a necessary space for both to grow and find their own paths. The months following Isabella's farewell brought a sense of renewal to Lily. With the cultural center in full swing and surrounded by friends and neighbors, she finally felt she had found her place in the world. Walking through the now vibrant garden, Lily allowed herself a moment of reflection. Her father's legacy, which she had decided to preserve, was not just a house or a financial inheritance. It was living proof that love, community, and dedication could transform lives. She looked around, seeing the children playing, the artists creating, and felt a deep peace. The path she had chosen was not the easiest, but it was certainly the truest for her. On the other side of the city, Isabella faced the beginning of her own journey of self-discovery. The emptiness she had felt over the years had finally become impossible to ignore. She began to distance herself from the social circle that was once her refuge, realizing that the superficiality of the relationships there never filled what was truly missing in her life. For the first time in a long time, Isabella was alone, not by choice but out of necessity. And it was in that loneliness that she began to rediscover herself. Away from the mirrors that reflected only her outer image, she began to face her true reflection. A woman searching for meaning. Isabella began to spend more time with herself, seeking to understand where she had lost her way. She started reading again, something she had long abandoned, and found herself enchanted by stories that spoke of courage, transformation, and redemption. The words of the authors she read became her new guides, leading her to question not only her past choices, but also the future she wanted to build. In her solitary walks through the city, she began to observe the people around her, not as extras in her own story, but as human beings, each with their own journeys and challenges. Gradually, the mask Isabella wore began to fall, revealing a vulnerable woman, but also one determined to change. As Isabella walked her new path, the memory of Lily and what she had built continued to inspire her. The house that Isabella once despised now became a symbol of what she wanted for herself, a new beginning, a reconstruction of what truly mattered. Although she knew that her relationship with Lily would never be the same, Isabella understood that the distance was necessary for both of them to grow. She no longer sought anyone's approval but the inner peace she had long lacked. And although the road was difficult, Isabella was determined to move forward, one step at a time. Lily, on the other hand, continued to expand her father's legacy, finding more and more ways to connect people through the cultural center. Every new project, every smile she saw on others' faces, confirmed that she was exactly where she needed to be. The house, now a symbol of hope and transformation, was a reflection of her own journey, full of challenges, but also filled with achievements. As she looked to the future, Lily no longer saw uncertainties but infinite possibilities. all built on the solid foundation of love and memory that she cherished so much. The lives of the two sisters, though following different paths, were connected by an invisible thread of learning and growth. While Lily thrived in her role as a community leader, Isabella began to find her voice, no longer shaped by what others expected of her, but by what she desired to be. The lessons both learned, about love, sacrifice, and the true value of things, were the same, even though they were experienced in different ways. And so what began as a story of irreconcilable differences turned into a narrative of acceptance, growth, and new beginnings. In the end, Lily felt a deep peace in her heart, knowing she had honored her father's legacy in a way that would make him proud. She looked up at the starry sky one night, feeling that the cycle was complete, not with an ending, but with a new beginning. And as Isabella, in a simple apartment far from the luxuries of before, wrote in a diary about her reflections and dreams for the future, she realized that her true journey was just beginning. Both, on separate paths but spiritually connected, walked toward a future where true wealth was measured not in possessions, but in wisdom and inner peace. If you liked Isabella and Lily's amazing story, subscribe to our channel and activate the notifications so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. If you love emotional chronicles and want to support our channel to continue bringing more quality content, consider contributing through Buy Me a Coffee. The link is in the first pinned comment. Your help is essential for us to keep improving. Thank you for your support. See you in the next exciting chronicle.